what is organizing, what are campaigns, and what do both need? I'll give a simple answer, and even forget the one sentence there. Just think of the big fish all organized after, or sorry, the small fishes all organized after the big fish. It's people acting together and coordinated through their campaigns and their relationships, building their power for long-term change. And then, according to Marshall Gans, what are campaigns? He's sort of the guru on the subject. They're highly energized, intensely focused, concentrated streams of activity with specific goals and deadlines. It's a little wonky, I know, but it helps us frame what we're about to talk about. And if you want to get a little bit more detailed, you can take campaigns from the base building, capacity building, bottom line that you have to start with, all the way to winning and celebrating your campaigns and building that into the next piece. And of course, what do they both need? They both need a compelling story. And I have to read this book. It's I guess, Kiwi, the Real Story. I just picked it off the internet. Okay, just one slide about Cascade, where I come from. Jonathan actually did well and basically said everything I needed to say, but we drew on the experience and the power of a fairly large organization for a small club, and regionally doing a lot of work around elections, advocacy, campaigns, planning, legal work, business consulting, etc. And we had, of course, our Facebook page and our Twitter and our blog that we used every single day, quite often, strategically. So I'm going to put this into context, and I'm going to talk about two quick stories from Seattle that build on the same model that we're talking about here. You know, building your base, determining what your campaign goals are, going and mobilizing and acting, and then winning those campaigns. The first is called Streets for All Seattle. It was a campaign that originated in our offices and slowly and eventually built to a coalition of about 80 individual groups. And I'm going to just sort of lay out the timeline for you. I'm going to look at what we did in 2010 and 11, and each quarter of those years, just really briefly, and touch upon how we incorporated online activism into the campaigns. Because again, this isn't about getting on your Facebook or Twitter account and having a good time and sort of recreationally using the internet. It's about using it for a very focused, specific, driven goal. And of course, we have our tactics along the way. So I'm just illustrating a few of our tactics from beginning to end and how the online piece plays in. So in Streets for All Seattle, the first thing, of course, is launching, and then we have our website. We build our list. And of course, we developed a pretty cheap and easy website, get that off the ground. That became a way for us to drive people to our campaign. Of course, then we drove people to public hearings and events. We had to have fun events with the mayor where we could actually gain a little bit of money for the campaign, build awareness, get people excited, have live music, that kind of stuff. Of course, then there's a media angle. We were in the papers and the TV and the radio as much as we possibly could, did a lot of earned media, and then of course packed the public hearings and got people motivated to get there and using all of our channels to do so. Beyond that, we targeted a citizens committee and the mayor. It was handy that I happened to be on that citizens committee so I could kind of point and target right to ourselves. And we got people to overwhelm us with emails and overwhelm us with clicktivism, essentially. Of course, that helped us build our list. It helped us build endorsements. We started getting other organizations like the Low Income and Housing Affordability Group on our side. And of course, leading up to the actual public vote, which we got it on the ballot, there was driving the narrative, telling the story, using the media, doing Get Out the Vote, GOTV work, like this email saying, hey, make sure you voted. So all that, and what happened? Well, we lost. We lost at the ballot box, but we won $20 million, which is not a terrible loss. It's pretty good. It's not a $14 billion cake, which is what I stand between you and lunch. But $20 million is not a bad win, and what I'm going to show in the next campaign, it built us to the next place. And so $100 million was on the table. We didn't quite get there. It was an okay consolation prize. But the point is that you're actually taking this plan and you're building your engagement throughout with online and offline activity and activism. And the next campaign should be around the corner, another discrete, specific thing in time that you're headed toward. So that brings me to a very brief example number 2, and that is state bike funding. In the United States, we have 50 United States, and Washington State is where Seattle is, and we needed to make sure we had a maximal amount of funding in the bike budget for the state. So a comparison between two very similar times, 2010, we had a really distant relationship with the state. Now actually somebody I've ridden bikes with is our governor, who asked me, what do we need for the state now? And things have changed substantially since 2010. But at that time, there was really no bike voice at the state. We had a lobbyist in the legislature, we did work statewide, but we were able to pull off a measly $6 million, which is almost the same as our operating budget as a not-for-profit. So not a big amount of money. What we did after that, of course, using our online advocacy power, at a very critical moment of the campaign, we reached out to the governor with 4,000 emails generated in just a couple hours and overwhelmed the governor's office. And they heard us loud and clear because we were coordinated and because the ask was very clear. We wanted $40 million to be kept in the state bike budget. And sure enough, it was. So an example that was actually a faster campaign, this is just, there was no 2-year build-up in mayor's council and, media push and all that stuff. We simply activated the members that we activated based on the previous campaign and other campaigns and fired it right at the right target. And voila, we by almost tenfold increased the amount of bike funding at the state level. So a few take-home lessons. For online advocacy, they don't need to be sophisticated, complicated systems. I mean, we happen to have a system we use because we could pay for it. But small groups of 1 or 2 individual volunteers or large groups can use very simple systems and do the same thing. Previous speaker just talked about the ladder of engagement, so thank you. I don't need to spend a lot of time there, but you build engagement over successive asks of your volunteer. Of course, you have to integrate the online into the real world, and so when you're doing that in a campaign, you ask people to come to events, ask people to do more than just click on an email or send a letter. Of course, you report back to them. People really enjoy getting the message back from people. Hey, this is what you collectively did. We were able to get it was a really fun email to write to people. We just got $40 million. I mean, that's the kind of email I want to write to people, and that's the kind of thing where they could see their place in actually achieving that win. And the fifth thing is being strategic and actually, really connecting your online campaign to the bigger campaign, because it should be nested inside the larger piece, which is the campaigns, which leads me to go a little bit beyond what I thought I was going to talk about and talk about campaigns, the 5 main points. One is obviously being strategic with your goals, your timing, your targets. You can lay all this out in a campaign plan and get I almost put it up there, but I thought that's a sleeper right before lunch. You have a very sophisticated plan where you know what you're going to do and when, and what your tactics are to get there. Of course, you're reframing the narrative and you're telling the story. That's something that we heard about from previous speakers. We really need to tell a really compelling story. Of course, building your power and increasing involvement. That's the whole idea behind generating engagement, is you build your power and then you leverage your power. And of course, be ambitious. 35, 40 years ago when my previous organization was formed, we had no idea that we were going to be good friends with the governor, go to the US Congress and actually get things done for us. But that was the long-term vision, and then there we were. And of course, you've got to celebrate your smaller wins. And then the last thing, which actually relates more to the online piece, but I think it's just kind of food for thought, maybe questions later if people want to talk. When people think about Facebook and Twitter and online, social media stuff, it's hard sometimes for people to understand that they are really, really useful tools. Even somebody like me who went to university before the internet, really, it's harder for me to understand this than younger generations who are just amazing at this stuff. And we need to keep in the back of our mind that it's a very, very useful, very powerful tool that is a tool for revolutionary change. And it's not just recreational noise and something that we should avoid. It's something that's very powerful. So I'll leave it at that. We are out of time. Thank you.